Hello, I am Nick Demjen with Origin Beverage, and I am joined today by sixth-generation family member Matteo Luxardo from the Luxardo Distillery in Italy. And welcome to Massachusetts, and we're happy to have you here at Horizon. You could please expand a little bit on the history of the company and the brand and kind of where it all started?
Sure. So as you said, I'm the sixth generation of the family. The founder was Girolamo. He wasn't never been involved in any alcohol business before he started with Luxardo. He was a salesman. He was selling ropes, coral, but there was his wife that she started producing cordial called Rosolio Maraschino in a city. They were living in a city called Zara, which is now is Croatia. Before was under the Venetian Republic for more than 700 years. Then became Italy, and so she started to produce this product called Rosolio Maraschino. It was an alcohol based with some cherry infused and rosa petals inside. Girolamo saw that it could be a business behind this, and he refined the recipe, and he started producing the first bottle of Maraschino in 1821. So we have the bottle is still very similar to the beginning bottle, the first bottles. Changed a little bit, just the glass and the straw, but the idea is the same. So we have the straw that was used for avoiding the breakage of the bottles. Those days in 1800s, there were no cartons, so they were using straw to avoid the breakage. So they were producing the bottles in an island called Murano near Venice, famous for the glass blowers, still famous for the glass blowers. So they were making the bottles, sending the bottle to the company. In Zara, somebody had to cut the straw, fill the bottle, put the cap, put the label, put the straw back again. So one day, probably somebody very clever or very lazy decided to put the label on the straw, and they solved a lot of problems of timing and so on. So this was the first bottle that the company started with.
Great. Could you go into the production of that product a little bit?
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Should I go tell the secrets of my products? No, I'm joking. It takes 4 years for the production, so it's a long period. 4 years is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about the other liqueurs, it takes like 1 day or 6 months, 8 months. 4 years is it's very crazy. We harvest the cherries in late June, beginning of July. Depends on nature, so we cannot decide when to harvest the cherries. We divide the juice from the solid part, so the stones, the pulp, skin, stems, leaves and branches of the tree are infused in alcohol in large wood vats for 2 years. After that, we take everything out, we distill it. The heart of the distillation, which is the good part of the distillation, is put then to rest in ash wood for other 2 years. And then sugar and water, it's added, and we have the maraschino.
Great. So do you grow your own cherry trees on your property?
Yeah,
there?
we have a lot of cherry trees around the Veneto region, not only around Luxardo company, but in the Veneto region. One of the main reasons is the pH of the soil is good for the cultivation of this variety of sour cherry. Being almost 70 years that we are growing those cherries, we managed to give the name of Luxardo Marasca cherry, so it's our own variety. We were producing cherries since the beginning in Zara. Then we had to escape from Zara due to the Second World War. So it's but in the last 70 years we were producing.
Approximately how many trees do you guys have, and how many cherries does it take to get into?
That's a good question. I asked my cousin, who's in charge of the production, of how many cherries do we need for one bottle of Maraschino. He never replied me.
Okay.
I know how many cherries are in a jar, but of cherries. Which was the question?
Just like the number of trees. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we got approximately around 30,000 cherry trees.
Oh wow.
So not only in, as I said, near the company, but around the Veneto region.
Great. in terms of coming out with new products and innovation, I know you guys have come out with the Bitter Bianco recently, and we have your new Sour Cherry Gin here as well. Could you go into a little bit more detail on how you guys have developed new products, you know, being such a historic company?
But the idea of new products normally comes from me. I'm the one who's traveling most around the world, and the one who's talking to bartenders, and not only, and to try to understand their needs. So the Bitter Bianco came out after a trip I did here in the U.S. and it was like 3 years ago, and there were a lot of bartenders mixing all the various ingredients to reach the flavor of a bitter for making a white Negroni. So I went back into the office and said, why don't we do a white bitter, a Bitter Bianco? So we got after a week, but I asked for this product. I had the finished product. So the beginning of everything are the infusions of the red bitter. Then we distill the infusions, and then after the distillation, we have the flavor is there, but the bitterness is it's gone. So we add some Roman wormwood to give back the bitterness to the product. And regarding the sour cherry gin, is a completely different idea. We started producing a gin 2 years ago with a 1936 recipe that we found. And because we had a lot of cherry juice, we said, why not doing our version of a slow gin? So we added the juice in the gin, and it came out very well. It's not a slow gin. Slow gin is, it's 25%, 250 grams of sugar. This is a gin. It's a dry product. There is no sugar added. It's a 37.5 of alcohol, and the only sugar it's inside is given by the fruit. It's a very, very pleasant product, and you can use it, to give a twist to all the gin cocktails that are thousands, I think, in the books.
Now, the recipe that you found from 1936 that you based it off of, the base for this, was that a gin that you guys produced yourselves?
Yeah. We were producing a juniper liqueur since 1800s, end of 1800s, and then this recipe is a refined version of that product. It was called Ginepro di Dalmazia, and then it became, so it's a London dry gin.
And had you been producing it up until now, or did you stop production back then?
We started, I don't know when we stopped production, we started again two years ago.
Okay. So looking into the future, what's next for Luxardo in terms of more brands and growing the company?
For sure next year something new will come out, but first we have to sell what we have.
Okay.
So I still have, every year I have a new idea. Depends if my idea was it's good or not, but probably next year, at the end of the year, we will have a new product to sell.
Okay. No peek behind the curtain to see what that is, or no? Okay. And great. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Mo. It's my
coming
pleasure.
to Horizon and to Boston and launching the Sour Cherry Gin with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. As you know, this is the end of my trip, so I'm happy to be here and happy to go home.